to talk to you a little bit from my heart about church. This is going to be a little different message today. We're just going to share some scripture. I'm going to talk to you really from my heart about church, your part in the church. We're going to be just intensely practical at the end of the message today. So maybe you brought a friend and you're thinking, oh, I hope he preaches okay because I brought a friend today and the whole kind of. We're just going to kind of deviate from that a little bit. But when you came to this church, whether you realize it or not, you became a part of a family. Now, I don't know how the whole thing started for you, why you're here today. Today might be your very first Sunday that you're here. You invited a guest here. Maybe you got forced here. Maybe somebody bribed you with a meal afterwards. I don't know how you came, but you took a chance on us, and I'm so impressed with that. Anytime you take a chance, somebody invited you, okay, like I'll go just so that they leave me alone, right? And so you came to church, you couldn't find the church, then you found the church, and then you come up 26th Street and you realize there's only one driveway to get into this parking lot, and you dealt with the congestion and the cars and the in and out, and you couldn't find a parking spot, and then you got out of the car, and on the way here, you brought the children, and you were shoving Pop-Tarts in their mouth, just trying to feed them breakfast on the way. There was an argument you had with your wife, and then before that, you were cleaning up the hot chocolate spill before you got in the car. So all of that goes on Sunday morning. Am I right? Something like that. And then you get here, and you get out of the car, and you're wondering, what's on the other side of those doors? And as you're approaching the church, you can hear in the background the theme song to Jaws. You know, you just don't know what's on the other side of the doors. You've heard things about Life Church. You don't know if they're true. I've heard they're freakazoids. You know, just whatever the kind of the stories you've heard. And the doors open. And the amazing thing is, hopefully there were incredible people inside the doors that shook your hand and said good morning to you. And they were kind of nice. And they were just really nice people. And then you came, and then you had to go through the whole check-in process with your kids, and there's iPads standing there. You don't have an iPad at home. You don't know how to do this whole thing, but somebody got you checked in, slapped a sticker on your kids, and you sent them down the stairs just wondering, what's going to happen to my babies, you know? And then you came into church here, and you got inside here, and then the worship and the whole thing's kind of weird, and they had people standing up front here just a little while ago praying for people. Never did that in my church. That was kind of strange, but you kind of liked it. And you decided, I think we're going to go back. I think we can try this again. Let's do this another time. You took a chance on so much of it, making it happen. And here's what I love about church. Every time that we come together as a church in this building, it's like a mosaic. A mosaic is a lot of little pieces of something or little tiny pictures that come together to create this big picture, the giant picture. And that's us at Life Church, and that's the church all around the whole world. It's many pieces coming together to make this amazing, amazing picture. And I love the power of the diversity in a mosaic. I love the diversity that's in our church. There's ethnic diversity. There's diversity from the countries you came from, the states that you came from. So this message is for you all, if you're from Texas, or all you all, however you say it in Texas. There's just all this diversity. And the great thing about diversity is the weak parts make up for, or the strong parts make up for the weak parts. And there's this incredible diversity that takes place when we come together as a church. I love church. And I love the diversity in church. As soon as a church stops looking like its community, it's the first step towards the death of that church. Our church needs to look like our community. I don't know what church people look like, but I don't want a church full of churchy looking kind of people, right? Our church should look like our community with all the diversity of Williston, North Dakota. Our church should reflect that same diversity. Are you with me on that? That's the way it needs to be, because that's our mission. Those are the people that we're trying to reach. That the church wasn't created for one, being you, it was created for everyone. That's what the church is all about. The church, in fact, is so important that Jesus died for the church. You think about that? Church is so important. Jesus died for it. Now, the word church doesn't really even appear much in your Bible, and it's not the same kind of church as we think of church as being a building. We're going to go to church today. But in the New Testament time, the word was ecclesia or ecclesia, however you want to pronounce it, and it really just meant a gathering. It could have been a political gathering. It could have been people getting together at somebody's house for a birthday party. That was an ecclesia. We tend to translate it as church. We look at this church, it's a gathering of people to come together, and understanding that church isn't a building, it's a community. Now, the community has to have a building in which it meets. But really, church is community. It's not a building. And what's so amazing about this building, this community of people that come together, is it says in Ephesians 3 that God is our Father, and the family that you joined when you started attending Life Church is joined together. We all derive our name from that one God. And we're all part of a family, whether it's here on earth or up in heaven. Now, I don't know if you realize this or not, but when you become a follower of Christ, you join a family, you're part of a family, and you get to spend the rest of your life with that family, even the nuts that are on the tree. Isn't that amazing? When you get to heaven, you know there's going to be people in heaven that you love to see, and then they're going to be the rest of the people. And you get to be with them for the rest of your life. Okay, all right, you're just letting that one soak in. So when you become a follower of Jesus, you just immediately become a part of a family. And I love this. I love the importance of family. We've all got stories about our family. And why this is so important, why I want you to know that we become a part of family is this, that when you become a part of family, how many of you know that families sometimes have struggles, and they got some ups and they got some downs? How many of you know that families, sometimes there's the relatives we just don't talk about? Do you have relatives like that in your family? Okay, but we become a part of a family. And we need one another in the family to help us through the ups and the downs, to stay on that level. Now, we know that every family has problems, challenges. They're not perfect, but we have each other. We have each other. We come together, and there's diversity in this family. Now, the purpose of the church is really threefold. Understand, here's the purpose of the church, and then we're going to talk about us as members within the church. We're going to drill down on the third thing here a little bit. Number one, the church is always about worshiping God. The church is always about worshiping God. It's first of all upward. When we come together collectively as a group of people, whether in this building or in any building in Williston, North Dakota, or around the world, the intention, the purpose of the church was to worship God, to sing his praise, to lift up his name, to tell him he's amazing and great and awesome. And the natural consequence of that is we get encouraged. But it's always first and foremost about worshiping God. It's always about worshiping God. Then, second of all, it's that the church is an expression of God, or Jesus, his son, to the rest of the world. That when people look at church people, they go, you know what? I don't know what it is about them, but there's something different about them. And what's different about us is that there's a Jesus in us. And then we come together and we worship God. The more we worship God, the more we start to look like God. And we can be that expression to the community around us. And then the third important thing about church, the reason the church is around is we need encouragement. We need to come together on a Sunday and just have encouragement. It's about worship, the expression of Jesus to the world, and about encouragement, W-E-E. You can say we, or you can say wee. I love church, right? That whole thing. So that's really what it's all about. And that's important because family members struggle, and you've had your own struggles. You've had your own struggles in your own family. And you came here to this church. And usually it's when we're going through struggles that we come to church. A lot of times people aren't going to come to church when everything is going very well in their life. It's when there's disaster and there's difficulties and challenges and tragedies that go on. Then we start to find that place of worship. You're here because somebody in this church has made an impact on you. And whether you realize it or not, a lot of people made an investment in you before you ever walked through the doors of this building. What takes place here Sunday by Sunday doesn't just happen. Monthly, we have a group of deacons, incredible men that stand alongside you, Pastor Rick, Scott, Sean, and Larry, that come alongside and they just hear my heart. They share the passions of the pastor. They see the vision and the direction for this church. There's an amazing woman named Stacy. Stacy comes in all the time throughout the week, and you know what she does? She cleans your mess. Do you know how messy you are? Do you know the kinds of things that we vacuum up off this floor? It's amazing. We are just messy people. And aren't you glad for Stacy when you go in the bathroom and there's toilet paper? Yay, I love it. You know, aren't you glad that the garbage cans are empty and the toilets are clean? Somebody is making an investment in you. Then on the first Sunday of the month, we take communion and we pass these trays around, and all those little tiny cups of grape juice, do you think they just happen? No, the guy who was playing drums this morning, Josh, he meticulously fills all of those little cups. It would be great if you want to step in and take that ministry. We're looking for that person, but somebody's got to make it happen. Somebody has to get on the phone and get on the internet, get on the computer, and gather together this amazing army of people we call our first impressions team. They're there to shake your hands. They're there to make sure that the lobby is clean. They're there to make sure that you feel welcomed when you walk in here. Our first impression team is an amazing army, and it's unseen by so many ways. And not only them, but the people that work upstairs. Do you know that babies go poo in our nursery? And somebody's got to clean the poo-poo. Somebody's making an investment in your child so that you can be in here listening to this message today. There's a lot of people that make an investment. Unseen people. It doesn't just happen. Dana's the one that organizes this incredible army of people that gets together, and the First Impressions team, and then Pastor Dan and all the people. And then Rochelle has this worship team. You know when they practice on Wednesday nights when you're getting ready for bed. And then you know when they're back here, they're getting ready for worship on Sunday morning while you're still in bed. I'm telling you, it's an amazing group of people, but it doesn't just happen. Because it's not about one. It's about everyone. Church isn't about one. It's about everyone. Really, it's not about, I mean, this is the style of music I like. I know, but there's other people who like different styles of music. I prefer the offering bags, not the buckets. Just saying, well, I know, but we're changing it up on you. Don't you love changing church? Okay, just let's get that out of the way, right? Okay, so just saying. Turn in your Bible, if you would, to Ephesians chapter 4. Let me share with you some scriptures, and then we're going to make this intensely practical today. In Ephesians chapter 4, this is a guy named Paul. Paul is writing to a church in the city of Ephesus. Here's what you need to know about Ephesus. Ephesus was culturally so much the same as the culture that we live in today. In the middle of that, a group of people started meeting together. They became a church. And Paul is in prison writing this letter. And how many of you know that when you're in prison, maybe you don't know, but let's just imagine, if you're in prison, you've got a lot of time to think, a lot of time to pray, and a lot of time to listen to God. And Paul, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, writes some words to the church that I think are as applicable today as they were when Paul wrote them. So in Ephesians chapter 4, verse number 1, here's what Paul says. He says, look, I, a prisoner for serving the Lord, so he just establishes right away who he is. He said, I beg you, lead a life worthy of your calling. Here's why. Because you've been called by God. This isn't a call from the pastor. It's not a call from the president. It's not a call from the governor. It's not a call from the principal of the school or some other authority. This is a call from God. And you know what? There's certain expectations that go along with being a follower of God. This is not just some willy-nilly organization. You want to become a follower of Jesus Christ. There's certain expectations that we need to live up to. And he's going to express it in the verses to follow. It's shown in how we treat each other in the church. Look at verse number 2. Always be humble and gentle. Now, before we go any further in that verse, let me just make something very clear. I am always humble. Thank you for that, amen. That just reaffirmed my pride. So, the humility and the gentleness is really this. When you come together as a church, and he's talking to a church, he said, be willing to serve. The humility is this servility. It's the willingness to serve the needs of the people. It's not about the people serving you. It's you serving them. And then he says, be gentle. You know what gentleness is? It's strength under control. It's not some limp-wristed kind of gentle. It is strength under control. And then he goes on to say in the rest of that verse, he says, making allowances for each other's faults because of your love. You know what the church has been noted for, unfortunately? That we don't make allowances for other people's faults. That we tend to be very strict, very severe, very judgmental. That we like to shoot ourselves in the foot. Sometimes we get harsh with people outside the walls of the church. We kind of let things go on the inside of the church that should not be let go. And Paul says, look, we all have faults. Let's make some allowances because we love each other. It's a little bit like when you were a kid. And somebody else older than you, bigger than you, and maybe some of their buddies are going to the store, they're going to the swimming pool or to the game or wherever, and your little legs are too short to keep up with them. And you want to be a part of what they're doing, so you're running along as fast as you can, and you remember the exasperation and the fear you felt in your heart of being left behind. And at some point along that path, you stopped and said, hey, wait for me. And either they did or they didn't. And I'm telling you, there are people in this church that are on a spiritual journey, and maybe they are not on the same place of the journey that you are. And they're saying, hey, wait for me. I want to come along with you. Would you have some grace for me? I want to be on that same journey. All of us in this room have slipped and fallen down probably on some ice. And here's what happens when we slip and fall down. The first thing we do is, even if we have blood gushing from our head, we make sure that we still look good. Okay, right? That's what we do. And if you're all by yourself, you just first of all look around to see if anybody saw that, because what hurts more than your head is your pride, because we fell down, right? Now, if somebody was with you, now just imagine that you're with your friend and they fell down. Your friend doesn't stand there and go, "You've been walking for 33 years. I can't believe you don't have this right yet. Like, you fell down. That is so dumb." Naturally, you as a friend would say, "Are you okay? Let me help you up." And that's what we need to do for one another in the church. That's what Paul says in this verse. Verse 3, he says, make every effort, I love the way he emphasizes this, make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. Do you know why he says make every effort? Because he knows that when churches get together, when people get together, sometimes we make every effort to be disunified, to nitpick, to argue, to have preferences. He knows that when people come together, it's not natural in us to have peace all the time, because what's more important to us than peace oftentimes is preference. And when we're all bent on preference, there's no peace. So he says, you got to work hard at unity, because it's difficult, because we have a mortal enemy called Satan, or the devil, who always wants to divide the church and then conquer the church. And all of us have heard stories of those very things happening. And the incredible thing is, those churches that are divided and then conquered, divided over the most ridiculous things. I kid you not, a true story. Whether or not the communion cups should be metal or glass. And you can laugh about that if you want to. But if you were in that church, you would be as emotionally charged over the same issue as those people were. Or whether or not we should have offering bags or offering buckets. I'm just saying. This is where the enemy comes in and divides churches. And so Paul says, you've got to work hard at keeping that unity inside the church. The church is always about working together as one purpose, one goal, one mission, one God. Verse number 4, he says, here's why we work for that unity. There is just one body, one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope and future. The culture that he's writing to, they had a lot of different gods. Think of the culture that we live in. There's a lot of different gods, if there's any God at all. He says there's just one God and one body. And that's what we are. All the followers of Jesus Christ around the world, we're all a part of just one body. Verse number 5, he says there's one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and in all and living through all. It's the oneness that Paul is really working for here. I remember as a little kid watching this weekly show called The Three Musketeers. And they'd hold up their swords and they'd say, all for one and one for all. That's what the church's anthem ought to be. They were all about the best decisions and the best choices, not only for ours, but for this body, but for the people outside of this body. It's a mosaic. A church is a mosaic, made up of a lot of pieces coming together to make one picture. And the picture that we should portray is the picture of Jesus Christ. That's the picture that we should look like when we come together. It's the church. He kind of wraps up this thought in verse number 16 when he says this. He makes the whole body fit together perfectly. Isn't it true that your body is fit together perfectly? Come on. Be honest with me here. At some point in your life when you have been daydreaming, have you ever imagined what the body would look like if you could rearrange its parts? Come on. Or am I the only weirdo in here? I mean, have you tried to imagine a different or a better place for the nose? Come on, just think about it for a little bit. Okay, you've got two eyes. Moms, wouldn't it be great if you did have one in the back of your head, right? But it just seems to work the best the way God has placed them. And what he is saying in this verse is that when you come together as a church, you all have a special place. I don't need 500 people up here in the worship team. I don't need 500 people to be children's workers, although Pastor Dan would probably love to have a pool of 500 people to choose from. You have a very specific and a very important role in the whole of the church. You're here. He says, as each part does its own special work, this is your work. This is what you do when you come together as a church. You know what your role does here in this church? Here's what it does. It helps the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love. In other words, what Paul is saying is that when we come together as a family like this, there is value in this. There is purpose in this. There is power in coming together as a church. And you're a part of that whole thing. If I could summarize really everything that I've said up to this point, I would put it in this one statement alone. I would say just provide for others what others have provided for you. Provide for others what others have provided for you. Somebody has worked hard and they dedicated themselves to get you inside of the doors of this church and make what happens happen for you on a Sunday morning. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of the same thing and do that for other people? That's what Paul is saying here. That's the value of a body. Imagine with me for a moment a church, what a church would look like or feel like. Let's say somebody comes to church, to Life Church, for say, on a Sunday morning, by invitation. And you maybe tell some coworkers, yeah, I'm going with somebody to Life Church this weekend. Oh, going to be a Bible thumper. I mean, the whole thing, and they're kind of making fun of you, or maybe you didn't even tell them you're going to go to church, but you get to church, and Monday morning comes around, and you get back, you're either around the locker, classroom, workplace, family, whatever, and they said, well, what was it like? Because we've all heard stories about Life Church, right? They hang from chandeliers and swing around like monkeys and roll around on the floor. I don't know what you heard about Life Church, weirdos. And you went back and you said, you know what? I've never been any place where I was more accepted than inside the doors of that church. Even the way I am, living with somebody, doing some hits of heroin, smoking. I mean, my past, whatever your story is, that when you came in here, you just said, and I couldn't believe the way they just loved Jesus. Imagine a church where people were just accepted. Just accepted. Not trying to be changed and transformed by the people of the church, but changed by the presence of God. Imagine that they were just loved enough to be honest, because we need honesty in our life. That people gave so much of themselves to help me find freedom and forgiveness and purpose. Imagine a church like that. Imagine if we treated one another in this church so magnificently, with so much love and so much acceptance, that the people on the outside of the church said, I don't know what they have, but I want it and I want in. Isn't that what the church ought to be? Shouldn't the church have such a flavor, such a zeal? Shouldn't it have such a love and such an acceptance that the people who aren't here, whenever they bump into us, whether it's in the market, whether it's at the gas station, in the school, in the classroom, in the workplace, they go, I don't know what it is about you, but I want what you have. Well, come with me to Life Church. That's what a church ought to do and what it ought to be. It's a mosaic made up of little pieces joined together that create a picture of Jesus Christ. And Jesus didn't have any filters at the door of the church. We kind of created some filters, but Jesus didn't have filters. He took people on right where they were in their life. Well, let me make this intensely practical for you now, okay? That's the church. You're really hearing my heart and my passion. Now, I'm going to share some things very practically with you. Here's the pitch. Are you ready? How many of you noticed all kinds of propaganda laying all over the seat? You probably thought, oh, they didn't clean up very good after last service, did they? Okay. Those were intentionally placed there by your pastor. You're going to find a membership application there. It's an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It says Life Church Assembly God at the top, and it says membership application. I would love for you to take a moment and become a member. Maybe some of you already filled it out while I was preaching. If ever there was a time that you didn't pay attention to me, that was one time that was okay. All right, if you were filling out that membership application, and here's the reason why I think membership is so important. Let me put 4 simple bullet points up here for you. Number 1, joining a church, you make visible your commitment to Christ and to His people. It's a visible commitment to Jesus and to His people that, you know what, I'm on board with what that church is doing. I want to be connected to it. I believe in the mission. I believe in the purpose. And you know what the mission of the church is? To seek and to save that which is lost. That's the mission of the church. The second thing that's so important about membership is making a church commitment makes a powerful statement in a low commitment culture. I don't know about the culture that you live in, but we live in a low commitment culture. If you have organized or planned anything and you say sign up online, the registration deadline is April 5th. Do you know when people sign up and register for your event? on April 4th and the half. I mean, they will wait until the end because we're such a low commitment culture. I think there's some bowling leagues that probably have a higher commitment level than some churches do. We live in such a low commitment world, and it says, hey, I am committed. It's not about living together, it's about getting married to the mission and the purpose and the plan and the heart of God. The third thing is that church membership keeps us accountable to each other. We need accountability so that we can finish this race. We face all kinds of challenges in this life, and there's a lot of things that want to pull you off of the path. There is a mortal enemy that wants to pull you away from that relationship with God. The church is a great place to stay connected and be accountable. You know what happens to part of your body if you cut it off? It dies. Guess what happens if you sever yourself from the body of Christ, the church? Spiritually, you die. Nobody gets to heaven through the church. The church is, you could say, well, look, you say, I don't need to go to church to believe in God. Maybe you're watching at home, watching online, and the reason you're watching is saying, well, I don't think you need to be in church to be a Christian. No, you don't. You don't. But I'm telling you, you're a weaker Christian for one thing. I'm just kind of going not off my notes. I'm going to go to dangerous places here, but I'm saying, look, it's like saying, well, I don't need to eat food to live either. You see how that works for you. I believe in food. I believe in everything the grocery store sells. I just don't eat it. Okay, all right, that's fine. Number 4, joining the church gives you an opportunity to make a promise. It kind of goes back to the whole commitment thing. It gives you an opportunity to make a promise. Now, here's another pitch, and then we're going to be done here in just a moment. Another piece of propaganda that you found on your seats this morning. Now, if you didn't find this material on there, just look over the seat. You probably think, wasn't on my seat. I don't have to commit here, right? Okay, there's a little pledge card that you'll find there as well. We are building a church, and we want you to be a part of what we're doing. Here's what we're doing. Maybe you've not seen any of this. Maybe this is new to you. Take a look up here on the screen. Here's what we're doing. On the left side of the screen, that box that you see on the left side of your screen, the bigger box there, that's what you're sitting in right now. You're sitting in that box. The future plans for that box, this space that you're sitting in right now, is to make the center part of this the children's worship area and put classrooms on either side. The other rectangle that is off to the right side of that box there, the darker rectangle, that's our current office space. We still need more office space. I have personnel on staff right now that we don't have an office for them in this church because we don't have room. And I have another staff member, our children's pastor, that even if I did give him an office, he would just set up shop wherever he was, which works out great for me because we're out of room. On Wednesday nights, if you're not here on Wednesday nights, it is absolutely organized pandemonium in this building because it is filled with children, youth in here and our kids downstairs. It is absolute pandemonium and mayhem. We are so out of room. That rectangle that you see there towards the center, the basement of that is going to, right now it's kind of an everything all-purpose room. It's going to become the youth lounge where the kids just kind of hang out and have fun and do their games and all that kind of thing. The box at the bottom center, that square box, that becomes the youth worship area. That fan-shaped piece off to the right, that becomes the next sanctuary that you get to worship in and be a part of. Above that is an amazing, amazing place for people to have encounters with one another in a lobby, and up at the top center of that is our children's classroom area. As you go down these stairs into our current all-purpose room down here, the way this will be expanded is that when you go down the stairs, everything that you see will all be on that level. It'll be an amazing, amazing place. The next picture kind of shows an aerial view of what the front will look like in the future there a little bit. If you were up in the sky in this direction looking down here, and you can kind of see our existing church up in the top right-hand corner. That's what you're in right now. The rest of this is all new. And then the next image is really just kind of an eye-level view. You're pulling into our driveway with the Pop-Tarts in the kids' mouth still and crumbs all over the seat, and you drop off the wife there underneath the overhang. That's the plan. That's the plan. Now again, the church isn't a building, is it? It's a community, but the community needs a building. The building becomes the tool. In all of us coming together, we become a mosaic that shows the picture of Jesus Christ. Now, let me just lay it out and show you where we're at so far. The next slide says that this is where we are financially. Our goal is $9 million. Not only the goal, but that's the budget. We're trying to stay in budget. If you have a budget at home, how many know it's good to stay in budget? We want to stay in budget. Now, here's the part you can all get excited about. We already have about $6.5 million. Give God praise. That's amazing, isn't it? That's incredible. That's incredible. Now, we want to close the gap between 6.5 and 9, and you could write the check today and make it happen. Just just seeing where that would go, all right? So, and again, I put this verse on there so that you can see that, you know what, humanly speaking, it's impossible. But with God, all things are possible, okay? Here's kind of my famous saying, it's only money. It's only money. So you have that pledge card there with you today. You know what I'd like you to do? Fill it out right now. You can get involved at different levels. You can do a one-time gift. You can give on a monthly basis. You can even have us take this out on your credit card month by month by month. We want to make it so easy and convenient for you. And if you fill this card out, you're doing this today, you can hand it to me. I'll be at the back door over there. There's an usher. It can be a back door over here. You can take it home with you. Just please don't put it in the bottom of the gerbil cage and forget about it, right? Fill it out and bring it back, but only after you've really prayed and said, God, what part can I have in this whole thing? Because I'm excited about the mission of Life Church. The little town that I pastored before, every Sunday, we had 10% of the city's population inside the walls of our church. I would love to have 10% of the city of Williston inside the walls of this church. That we could directly impact 10% of the city of Williston, and not only have an impact on 10%, but then influence another 30 to 40%. Already, we're on TV. We're all the way from Plentywood, Montana, Wolf Point, Montana. We're in Poplar, we're up in Crosby, North Dakota, and all the time we hear people that are watching this on TV. So we're still having an influence in the region from Watford City to Stanley to Powers Lake. The message of Jesus Christ week by week goes out. But it doesn't happen without people like you being involved, and there's so many different levels of commitment that you can be a part of. And I just gave you a couple of practical. So this is where I want you to get connected with Life Church and its mission and its passion to seek and to save that which is lost, so that when people walk in the doors of this church, they will, as you see on that wall over there, they're going to find friends. Do you know why they're going to find friends? Because you are amazing people. They're going to find God in the process of being involved with what was on here. And when anybody finds God, you know what they find? They find life. And so that's really become the mission. That's the heart of Life Church. That's why I'm excited week after week after week to stand before you and share this presentation of Jesus Christ to you all the time. I'm passionate about this, church. I tell you, I'm passionate about it. And when you invite somebody to be a part of what we're doing here, I am so thankful and proud of you for doing that. Will you bow your heads with me?